From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and Chief Digital Strategist at Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's show, I have Christine Blosdale with me, and we're going to talk all about imposter syndrome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing concierge that helps you put all your marketing pieces together. We are your marketing experts. We are also your WordPress security experts and know how to lock down a website and protect yourself from bad actors. So contact us at Stunning Digital Marketing today. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. And today I've got Christine, the expert authority coach with me. Hi Christine, how are you today?
I'm good, Rob. How are you?
Not too bad. It's not often we were talking before the show. I do a podcast with somebody like 14 hours away. You're in Australia, correct? Yeah.
New South Wales, Australia, down under, as they say. Yes.
Yeah, that's an old Aussie band, Men at Work, that coined that song, if you recall, called Down
Yes,
Under.
I'm becoming more familiar with Australian rock, which I did not know. And you know what? There's also they love here is ABBA.
Oh
They're
yes,
huge ABBA fans.
they big ABBA in Australia. So true, so
Yeah.
true. And isn't that isn't that Love Song Band Air Supply from Australia too, if I recall, or
Yes,
someone?
I do
Yep.
believe so. Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I'm such the fan, and then we'll get on with it. They're on their 50th anniversary tour, and I've seen them 25 times. So there you go. So just
Oh,
just a little bit. So there you go. But we
that's
don't digress
cute.
before we get to the show. So today we thought you've done a multitude of things. You do a podcast, you do other stuff. Um, Before we get to the topic, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do and why you
Yeah.
do it, please?
Yes, I love actually I like saying why I do it even more than like
Yeah.
how I got here. Um, I am someone who, since I was really little, was able to look at a situation, look at a restaurant, look at a store, look at a business, even as a little kid, and pick out the things that I really appreciated, and then that I wanted to point out and say, this is really good, this is done very well.
Yeah.
And those things that I like, oh, they could have done better on this, right? Um, Even when I was really little, my mom, she was a single parent. She would take me, we'd go to some place and it'd be a hotel, and I would go through the room and I would say, they did this right, they did that right. Oh, that pillow's wrong, that artwork, you know. And so I always had a really strong opinion about things. And as a little kid, I was encouraged to have that opinion. And even so much to the point where my mom would be getting ready for work. She'd work really late nights and she would be putting on her makeup and her clothes. And she would say, what do you think about this outfit, Christine? And I was like 5. And I remember just going, okay, that top is fine. Those boots, I don't know. Do you have something else? Because those boots don't really work. And she would change. She would listen to my opinion and she would take it as being serious and she would actually change her outfit. So at a really young age, I got that feedback that my opinion really mattered.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
so it really helped me as going through life. But now I get to work with authors and creatives and coaches and basically help shine a light on their expert authority. And if they don't know what they're an expert at yet, then I help find that for them. And we work on promoting their business, getting the brand, all sweet, and getting them out, getting their message out to the world through different platforms. So it might be a podcast, it might be videos on TikTok, it might be just even taking a look at their website and, zhuzhing that up a bit. but we try and get them more attention and classify them as an expert authority in their field.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem is people don't always narrow it down. And if they don't narrow it down, they can't have the right messaging. And that becomes a problem because if you can't narrow it down, how do you send out the right vibes and the right messaging? It's really hard if you don't know what you're an expert in.
It's confusing to the general
Yeah.
public, and it would be very confusing to your potential clients if they
Yeah.
don't know specifically what you do. I've got I have a couple clients who they talk about what they've accomplished, but they don't say what they actually do. Now, I know if I call up a plumber because my toilet is not working, I know I'm calling up a plumber to fix the toilet. Now, if I contacted somebody and they said, "Well, I do a little bit of this, I do a little bit of that," I help people. It's like, Wait a second, I need a plumber, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I also try and work with people and say, you need to say what your service is and how you actually help people. Do you help them lose weight? Do you help them conquer their fear of being on stage? Do you help them in their social media? What is it exactly that you do? And us as entrepreneurs, we tend to want to help everybody with everything.
Yeah.
And we really need to narrow that down. Like you said, we need to narrow that message down so people know exactly, okay, I'm going to you because I need this done.
No, I agree with it. You mentioned something really interesting. The fear of being on stage. I love that one. I haven't told you this, but I'm 58 in 2 weeks. I was a high school debating champ at 15. So I learned how to public speak very early. In my final debate that we won the Quebec provincial championships, at that time I was in Montreal, I dropped notes in the middle of the debate and didn't pick them up. I'll tell you that now. We won. I was told afterwards by the head judge of the province of Quebec if I picked those notes up, I lost. I was actually told that after. So he was curious. That's a good vehicle to learn. But the one tip I was going to share, and then we'll kind of move on a bit, is if you have a problem public speaking, practice in front of a mirror. It's the tip that I've lived by over the years. My mom hated championship weeks because my parents had a full length mirror in the bedroom. And
Little Rob would be in front of it.
I would just commandeer the space because I knew if I could deal with myself for hours at a time, it didn't matter who was in that audience, I could deal with anybody. And that's kind of
Yeah. Yeah, and I did a little bit of the same when I was in high school. I found play production or theater,
same
and
thing.
as a little gay kid who didn't know she was gay at the time, I felt so out of place in high school anyway with all the jocks and the you know
Yes.
all, it's we had like 3,000 people in our high school, and I went from a tiny private school to this public school. And
Been
so I
there.
was just searching for my space, my place. And then I found, the theater department and play production. And that meant musicals and all kinds of different things and Shakespeare. And so when I found that, I found my home, but I had a really hard time remembering stuff, remembering lines. Oh my gosh. I would practice in front of the mirror, and then when it got time on stage to actually speak the lines, it was like I had a memory wipe. It was like all gone, and I just was panicked. So I do much better. I do way better doing freestyle communication than actually remembering exact words. Although Shakespeare, once you get into the cadence of it, it's actually something that kind of sticks in your brain. I don't remember much from Shakespeare stuff. I think just one sonnet, and that was painful to do as a child. It's hard doing. It's really hard when you're a teenager and you got to do Shakespeare.
Me too. I used to drive professors nuts. I'd walk in and give an hour talk, and they'd say, "Can I see your talk?" I'd say, "Sure." And I hand them a piece of paper with 5 points on, and they're like, "Really, Rob?" And I'm like,
Right.
"Really, what?" Because that's the
Yeah.
way I roll. Yeah, yeah. You understand. So today, you and I would thought we'd talk about something we all have problems with as entrepreneurs, and that's called imposter syndrome. And this is such a big
Yeah.
one. Why can't I do it? Why can't I charge $500 an hour? By the way, I have clients that charge more than that too, and I'm sure you do. Why am I not good enough? Why don't I belong on that stage? Why am I not there? So
Yeah.
how do you start addressing all that stuff?
Well, you know, and I do that. That's kind of the first thing that I work with all of my clients is I check the imposter syndrome meter on them, right? Some people are fine with it, and it'll come up from time to time when they're really challenged to do something that they've never done before. Then that will kind of creep up, but it does not matter how many degrees you have on the wall, how many years you've been doing something. It goes through different socioeconomic, levels. A lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome, and it could be something many times. It's because it's a belief system that they have, and it's tucked away from something that maybe happened a long time ago. Maybe when they were kids, they didn't have supportive parents, and somebody, an authority figure said, "Oh, you're stupid," or "You can't do that," or even like a comment that somebody made on the playground in the
Yep.
sandbox,
Yep.
that stuck with you. You know, you're a little kid, and you really are absorbing and you believe what other people say because we're very influential from like 1 to 7, I think, and so those early messages that you get about who you are can stick with you. And even though if you go through life and you have, successes and therapy and all that stuff, every now and then when you feel uncomfortable, that little thing will pop up. And so I have a couple different processes I do when I'm working with people to help get through that. Now, I never say we're going to magically erase that from your life because that's life, right? But I do give them some exercises in ways that we can overcome that because it's all about showing up for your audience, for your clients, for your customers, for the people that you say that you want to serve. If you want to help people lose weight, or you want to help them live a healthier lifestyle, or help them overcome some trauma themselves, you need
Hmm.
to be able to show up. And if you have that imposter syndrome, that really will hold you back, and you won't be showing up for those people. So, I can tell you about a couple of those things if you like.
In a sec, because there's a couple of things I wanted to address there. First of all,
Mhm.
showing up, and it's more importantly to show up for you too than all those other people. So that's the first thing I want to address. The second thing was you talked about the belief system. How many times do we see it in your business life, in your personal life, that bullies hold people back? And there's this really good book that I like out there, one of my favorites, and I've touted it on the show. I've read it multiple times. I've had my partner read it because we've been through some heavy stuff together. And the book is very simply called Own Your Past, Change Your Future. And the author's name is John Deloney. He's a medical therapist, and he's on the Ramsey Network. And what I'll tell you is Don is bang on the money with that topic. And it kind of applies here because if you understand what's happened in the past, then you can change the trajectory of where you're going. And I think that's really important.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, when I was a little kid myself, around stranger, I was extremely shy. Like, I
Yep.
mean, really shy. If somebody came into the house, I would be hiding behind my grandmother's recliner. That's back in the days everybody had a recliner. We had two big recliners in the den, and I would hide behind it because I was just so scared. And that's what's interesting is that I ended up becoming someone who is on air. I was in broadcasting for 20 years. I was on I had to
Yeah.
sort of command that attention, and then eventually getting on video and working with people, you have to kind of get over that shyness,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But yeah, if you're able to figure out that you even have imposter syndrome, a lot of times people don't know it. They beat themselves up. They say, I'm not why am I not a success? Why don't I have clients? Why don't I have money coming in? Why aren't people buying my
Yep.
XYZ? And you beat yourself up, of course, because you think it's all your fault. And it's not a thing about fault. It's a thing about getting those obstacles out of the way so that you can actually truly communicate your message and show up, right? And so when you actually take a look at, okay, I do have this thing that happens And we as human beings, we're seeking connection. We want to connect. We want
Mhm.
authenticity and relatability. And so if your messaging is coming across, it's all diluted and fuzzy, people aren't going to understand what it is that you do. But then there's also this thing I call the stink. And the stink is when you're really desperate. It's
Yeah.
that desperation stink. And that is you're not saying it, but you're sending out that smell and you're sending out those vibes, that energy of I've got to book this client. I got to. And nobody wants to jump on the Titanic, right? They can smell it and they can feel it. You can feel it when somebody is in that desperation
Yeah,
mode.
of course.
And so people say, well, how do I get out of that desperation mode if I am desperate? And there's a couple different things that we do for that. But getting over that imposter syndrome, I do like to, because so much of our stress comes around thinking these thoughts. What are people going to think about me? Who am I to be a coach, or who am I to speak about the subject?
Mhm.
Who am I? Who's going to listen to me? What will people think? What will people think about me? And so I do my practice when I'm with clients that really have that is I actually take the focus off of them, even though we're building up their brand, we're building
Yeah.
up their title, right? And it is about you. You're the brand if you're a coach. But what I do is I shift it and I say, you need to focus now, not on you and how you look and what you're wearing, but you need to focus on the people that you say you want to serve. So if it's
Yeah.
kids that you want to inspire or help out of a troubled, home, then focus on the kids. If it's client, for me, I have so many super talented clients, and if I hold myself back and I don't show up for them, they don't get to progress and they don't get to be successful. Right. So sometimes it's easier to do that. It's the same thing if you're a parent and you've got kids. And, when somebody says, well, Christine, you really should be eating better, you should be exercising, for your
Mhm.
health, you go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And you open up a bag of Doritos. But if somebody says, well, your children really need you to be around. And when they have kids, those grandkids are going to be able to learn so much from your wisdom. Well, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, right? So sometimes we do need to put the focus on other people in order to get us through it. Now, I don't like
Yeah.
to live my life that way. I'm very secure in what I can accomplish. I don't have those imposter syndrome things pop up at that often. Once in a while, but it's really important to focus on who is it that you're going to serve, and if you don't show up, they don't benefit.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's really hard is how you react to stuff. So I think in this whole
Hmm.
discussion, people have a tough time with imposter syndrome, I think, and I could be wrong, and please correct me if I am, have an issue where they tend to be a little bit more on the negative side. So I get
Mm.
up every morning and I kind of, and I'm gonna pick my mom, and she won't like this, but oh well, if the shoe fits,
Is
wear
she
it.
is she listening? Is she listening right now?
No, no, and she tends not to. So there you go.
We're
But
safe.
the point is, she gets up, and her family, I think, is cultured to be a little more negative. So they always take the half glass empty status. And I always take the approach, it's half full, and then do it. And I think by taking that approach half full, it's easier to get over things like imposter syndrome because you already have a positive mindset. And I think that's half the problem with this stuff is what your beliefs are and what you're thinking and how you're framing it.
Ab- Absolutely, and it depends on the person. I have quite a few clients who have ADHD,
Yeah.
and if you know anyone who's
Me, me.
neurodiverse,
Yeah.
okay, by they're constantly getting messaging
Yeah.
about how crappy they are, about how stupid they are, about how
Oh,
they,
yeah.
they they're constantly getting those messages, and it's sometimes it's from the outside world coming in, and it's perception. It's nobody's really sitting there going you're dumb, but it's those things that we're looking for. We're looking for that confirmation of that we are not smart, or so we get that feedback loop. But then also it's those, from growing up, and neurodivergent folks are brilliant. My wife is amazingly talented. She's got a lot of tabs open and she likes to do a lot of things at the same time. So for her, what she just needs to do is to realize that that's not a detriment, that that's not something that's bad. It
Yep.
just needs to be focused in on. And then, I mean, she's hugely successful, but she suffers because of those thoughts too that can come in. And so when you're talking about that negativity, some people, um, yes, some people that they're in a dynamic, they're in a society or they're a culture or a home, they grew up and everything is negative. Every single thing is negative, and that's tough. But there's hope for that person to grow through that, right? And when you're talking about someone who gets thousands of messages every single day that they're not enough, that they're not good enough, that's really hard. And that's where you need those tools and the support that you can to know that, it is. And I hate when people say, oh, ADHD is a superpower. I believe it is, but to the person who has it, it's like, really? Like, this is tough, you know?
Yeah, it is.
So it depends on the person. It really does. And I've always been pretty positive myself, looking at, because I had to, because as a kid, I had a situation when I was growing up. My parents divorced when I was 2. I was going back and forth, and I had some living situations that weren't that great. And you know what? As children, we're so adaptive.
Yep.
We're so brilliant at being able to look at things. I remember like living in a garage and turning that around, and it was cold. But I remember turning that around and going, "Hey, I've got my own place." And I was like a little kid. I was like, "This is like my own apartment, you know?" And
Yeah.
I was able to flip it instead of being, "Oh, I'm in a cold garage. This sucks." Separated from the family, I was able to flip it because that's a coping mechanism that we do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you either
So
drown in the negative and woe is me and this sucks, or you're like, okay, let's turn this around. Let's make this a positive so that we can get through this situation, right?
I so agree with you 100%. Um, so we've recognized somebody's a client's got imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Where do you start with them? Like how do you help them?
I really love to point out those jewels that I see in the work that they've done, in their brilliance, and I
Mhm.
like to pluck those jewels and I put them in their crown, basically.
Yeah.
And they may not even think that like, oh, that thing that I do, that's nothing. And I say, well, it's nothing. You may think it's nothing, but it's actually a very marketable skill set that you have, and millions of people would really love. I have a client who is a very gifted psychic, intuitive psychic, and she was working for or struggling with the thing with her clients. Everything was very trauma based, right? So it was helping them get over a lot of trauma. Well, she was also feeling, pretty bad because everything was not negative, but very intense and sad. And so she was just in all of this sadness. And I said to her, I said, you're an intuitive and you're gifted. Um, what about also, yes, helping people heal from that trauma is important. But then I said, there's millions and millions of coaches and business owners who really could use a psychic. I mean, if I had a psychic that was helping me make decisions, on what to call my business, this program or my business or the next step, should I get a loan and, expand and do these, it would be very helpful. And she just, like, a light went on and she went, you mean I can focus this on for business owners? I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, you could. It's like going to Vegas and having somebody that knows, bet this. It's I said it's especially if you're proven and you're very confident in your psychic skills. And she said, I am. I said, well, yes, you have a whole market of you can have help business owners make those different decisions and guide them in their growth. And so she's in the process of doing that right now. But sometimes you need somebody from the outside to look at what you do, you know. Someone from the outside could look at you and go, "Oh my gosh, you've already got a book. You've got a best-selling book. You're sitting on it."
Mhm.
And they go, "But I'm not a writer." Okay, but you don't need to write. I've got 5 books and I'm not a writer either. I'm a talker. So I can
Mhm.
take that content through technology and repurpose it and create it into a readable, enjoyable books. And so it just depends on the person, but we focus on those things that I know that they're really good at. And we shine a light on those things first. That helps a lot.
I'm sure it does. And I would say the other thing that probably helps, and I've been through this, and I'm sure you've been through this, having bounced around between place to live, is to kind of take those negative voices, whether it's ourselves saying it to ourselves or people saying it to us. And I have to tell you, family is the worst and the best, depending on where they sit, because they often use negative voices as a bully tactic or an I'm right tactic versus a supportive tactic. And it's
Yeah.
something I've gone through. I'm sure you've gone through. And I've made a decision in my life not to deal with that stuff. I just say, okay, you want to act that way, that's fine. Goodbye. We don't need to have that conversation. What do you say to that?
Oh, yeah. I think you nailed it on the head. And this is probably where most of the discord and pain
Mhm.
happens in our world across cultures is that thing of, I need to prove that I'm right. I
Yep.
win. I want to win at all costs. And that means,
Yep.
taking a bazooka to a knife fight, you know?
Yep.
I have to win. I need that feeling of, and a lot of that comes from also from their childhood feeling that they didn't
Yep.
have control, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so,
100%.
narcissists are like, they're they're the epitome of that because they have no empathy for you. They could leave you, you could be dying on the street and they would just simply step over you and say, "You got my shoes dirty," right? So, but it's because of something also that I believe it's also something. I don't think you're just born a narcissist. I think it's something that has happened to you. But yes, and sometimes you need to step back and go, are those negative voices, that imposter syndrome or that negativity, is that coming from me or is that coming from the family that I grew up in or society? If you're a woman in certain cultures, you're not told that you're amazing and you're smart. You're not told those things. So you have to think about where those thoughts are coming from.
Yeah.
But then if it's not any of those things and it's just sort of like an insecurity that pops up, sometimes we need to check ourselves. You know, I remember when I first met my wife, and we lived she lived in Australia and I was in California, and so it was long distance communication for the six first 6 months. We didn't even meet. We just, I mean, we were on the phone and video
Yeah.
calls and things like that, but not in person. Excuse me. And all of your triggers come out when you're first meeting somebody. All of your, you know uh they didn't answer my text right away, so they must be cheating on me, or they must have found somebody, all those different things. And I remember driving in my car one time, and I had sent a text, and it had been a while, it had been quite some time before there was no response. And in my head I was going, "Oh, she must have, found somebody there in Australia, an Australian, really good looking person in Australia." Because I'm thinking they all look like Chris Hemsworth or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I'm going, "Oh, it's over. It's over." And you get all
Yeah.
dramatic. "It's
I
over.
understand.
Hey, it's all right. I'll survive." And then I stepped outside of my body for a second and I said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
She just hasn't answered you yet. Why don't you just wait and see?" And then the other side, on the shoulder of the little devil and the little angel, it's going, "Oh, you know what? You, you're nothing. She's got all this great stuff over there. You're nothing."
Mhm.
And so you start to go down the spiral, right? I call it the spiral, the bathtub.
Yep.
When you
Yep.
let the
Yep.
plug out, you go keep going down. And then I remember pulling myself to the side as I'm driving. I'm still driving, but I just pulled my consciousness to the side and I looked at what I was doing and I said, this is ridiculous. Just wait and see. And don't put any energy into don't text her and go, what's wrong? Just leave it alone. Don't pick the scab. And 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 it was fine. We there was nothing wrong. She was just busy, right?
Yeah,
But
and it
we work
happens
ourselves up.
when we all have life. I give you even a more realistic example. My partner Tiz is on an Alaskan cruise right now. They set sail out of Vancouver yesterday, and I heard from her the morning of. I heard from her. What's today? No, this set sail. Well, today's Tuesday. It's set sail Sunday. And I haven't heard from her much in the last 2 days because we all know internet on ships is expensive, Wi-Fi on ships is expensive. Am I worried? I heard from her before a couple hours before they set sail. I'll probably hear from her when they land. And she's like, I might call you when we hit port, depending on because calls at
The
sea
connection, right?
are expensive. And I'm not, I said to her when she left, I said, I'm not worried about it. And we need to stop working ourselves up. And that's one of the reasons why we feel this way. And a friend of mine said to me the other day, aren't you worried? I said, no, why? She's away with her sister. She's having fun.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Do I miss? Yes, that's one thing. But am I okay? And that's the reality of it all. We got to
And
stop. Yeah.
yes. And Rob, not only does that make you like your blood pressure and your heart feel good, but as for her, you're sending her also that really good energy of,
Yeah.
I want you to have a good time, honey. Don't you worry. I love you. I'll be right here. I can't
Yep.
wait till you come
Yep.
home.
Yep.
Instead of you texting her and where have you been? What did you do? Who were you with? You know,
I
that
don't
kind
worry
of
about
thing.
I don't worry about stuff like that. And that's this I know it's personal, but it also translates in the business. It's the whole imposter
Absolutely.
syndrome stuff.
Yep.
Um, I think part of imposter syndrome too is hanging around the right types of people in your business world.
Hmm.
And I mean that.
Hmm.
So one of the things I do, I'm a bad marketer some days. And I say that a lot. Excuse me. I don't like marketing conventions as a whole. I'll do a few for networking, but I don't like them. And I'll tell you why I don't like them. Because everybody's jiving at the same connections and the same business reasons. And for me, that doesn't work. I'd rather be in a room with a bunch of small business owners trying to figure out what to do than at a marketing convention. That's just my take on it. I will go to them because sometimes socially they're good. Sometimes they're good to catch up with people, but that's a long play game. It's not about driving for me long-term business. So that's the first thing I don't like. And I don't mind networking events. It's just kind of my take on it. The second thing is if you're in my business world, and I know if you're a negative client, you're a negative person, you don't want to help the process, you're probably not staying in it very long for me.
Mm-mm.
Because I've learned and I have spent, most people in my world will tell you, I've spent the last 10 years and even more so since I got out of my first marriage 5 years ago, house cleaning my life, business, professionally, and personally. And I think when you start to do that, you get over it because all this negative influences the whole imposter syndrome problem.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And you get to a certain stage in your career, with your profession that I mean, I know myself, like I don't want to work with everybody.
No, me neither.
My my life force, my energy, if I'm doing a 2-hour session with you or an accelerator program where we're working very close, for months, um, I don't want to. I'm very choosy with who I spend my time with. And first of all, it's exhausting. It's exhausting having a client who is negative or, combative. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm here to help you. Why are you why are you fighting me? So yeah, I stay clear. I just say I'm not a right fit for you. If I'm feeling that, it doesn't happen all that often because I feel that people pretty much by the time they've reached out to me for that discovery call or that consultation, they know my style, they know who
Hmm.
I am, and so it's a repellent for some people, and I'm very happy about that. But once in a while, somebody will get through, and I'll go, no, I don't think so. And I have a mastermind as well, and it's a very small group. It's probably 12 to 15 people. And I'm very protective of my mastermind. My members are very vulnerable, and they're
Yeah.
sharing their secret sauce. They're saying, "Well, I'm working on this." So it needs to be a very supportive, um, generous group, and they need to feel safe and
Hmm.
supported. And so if I feel that there's somebody that wants to come in and they don't have that same sort of energy and belief, they ain't coming in. I'm like, No, it's not a right fit for you." So also, I think something what happens as we get older,
Yes.
I'm 60 now, and I don't have a problem saying no. Now in our 20s, we're kind of people pleasing. We're like, oh, okay, I'll try that. Okay, I really don't like to do that, or really don't like these kind of a person, but I'll get along to do along to get along. Okay, and then you hit a certain point in your life, and you're like, no, no,
No.
I don't.
Oh, so, but even more, let's take that one step further. And then they say to you, Christine, why, why no? And you know what my answer is? You're gonna love this.
Because I don't like you. No, no.
You're close. It's because I don't want to. I do not follow no up with an answer that can be debated. No, oh, because I'm busy. So when are you going to be not busy? I don't, I personally don't like qualifying because then I go
Yeah.
down a road I don't want to go down. So I just say, I don't want to. Oh,
And that's pretty final, isn't it? They can't really
yeah.
argue that. They can't force themselves on you.
Yeah. And by the way, there's a really good book out there called The Artist Saying No. I don't know if you've read that one or not read that
I've
one,
heard
Rob.
about that. I'm going to write that down because I do. I think it's really important for all kinds of folks to know that the art of saying no. Yeah.
My partner Tiz is the people pleaser personified, and it's one of the things he has a tough time with sometimes is saying no, even to me. And I've actually sat her down and said, will you say no to me? If it's not working, tell me. If it's not working to one of your friends, and she got into an incident recently with a group of friends, and somebody wanted her to move a date, and she just put her foot down and said, no, I'm not moving it. That's the end of it.
Good.
And
Good.
for her to do that, that takes a lot. So, stuff like that. Um, so I come to you and I say, I want to work with you.
Hmm.
And where do we go from there? Do we jump on a one-on-one? Do we jump into the
Yes.
mastermind?
Yes.
How's your process work?
I need to have that conversation with you first. Just
Yeah.
it's so important to know where you're at, to know more importantly where you want to go, what you want to be doing. And
Mhm.
then I am that interpreter who's between what you've been doing and what you want to do. I will also be giving you my intuition of what I see that would be really good for you. So, and it might be something you haven't thought of before, or it might be, well, but I want to do this. And I might say, okay, that's good. We can work on that. But can I give you an idea or a suggestion? Because I'm getting a really strong hit on, on this direction for you,
Yeah.
and having this kind of a service that you can provide. And people a lot of times they'll go, oh my God, that's when the light bulb goes off. And so I need to have that discovery call with you. So we first do that. It's always free to have that conversation. It's 30 minutes and it's like condensed, it's intense. I put a lot into 30 minutes so that by the time
Sure.
you're done with that, you're like, holy moly, we got a lot done already. And then depending on the person, sometimes the mastermind would be like a supplement for them. If I feel they're a right fit, again, they have to be that unicorn, right?
Mhm.
And then if not, I have just single sessions a la carte. we're 2 hours, and in 2 hours we work on whatever particular piece we need to. It might be your website. It might be podcast guesting. So I get you ready for that. It might be creating a media kit, all those things. But I don't get to do a whole lot of work with you on your branding and your actual business unless we do like the accelerator program. And that is every single week we meet for 2 hours, and we get a lot done. And it's a minimum of 3 months. And in 3 months, by that point, you're on your way. You're settled. You know who you are. You know what you're offering. Your messaging is clear. And then people can come back and work with me for continue after that, or they might just supplement it with, a session here and there. But it's really simple. I don't lock people into long contracts. I don't believe, if they want to work with me, if they want to continue working with me and they're happy with success, they will come back. But I do not myself, I don't lock people into some long-term agreement or contract, because I know that if people are stressed about that, and then that energy is going to come into our sessions, and I don't want that either.
No. But I also think it's important that you've established if they're going to get into this, it's probably going to be 3 months because let's be honest, we can't solve this kind of issue in one 2 hour session.
No,
It's like
no.
the way I like to describe it is, and having been this road, and I'm being very transparent, is couples who get into couples therapy or counseling. They think one or two sessions is going to solve all their problems in the world. That's not. And this is very much the same thing on the business side. You get in this, it's a process, and it takes time for you to understand your client, for the client to understand you, to build that trust, which is really important here, and to get to where you need to get to together. And that is so important.
Well, and also because there's so many different aspects of a business. I mean,
Yeah.
and depending on what your business is, but I work with a lot of coaches. I work with a lot of thought leaders and service providers, and it's there's a lot of moving parts. And so, with those a la carte, with those 2 hour sessions that I do here and there, that's like a real specific goal that we do.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
not going to be able to fix everything. Like you said, we're not going to be able to deal with all your branding and all of your messaging and getting you booked up. We can't do that in just
Mhm.
one session. But that's why I like the high touch point of that accelerator, because every single week my clients know that they're going to be meeting with me, and that they needed to get some stuff done before that next session. So it keeps them accountable. And if we
Yeah.
don't have, sometimes as a solopreneur, like we're in our own world and we get sidetracked and we're dealing with other people. And so sometimes we need that guidance, that direction, and somebody that is going to say, hey, in a couple hours of meeting, make sure you get your stuff together so that we can really benefit from being together. And 2 hours is it's a good amount of time in a session to get a lot done. So
Yeah.
that's why I've formulated it that way. Those are basically the ways that people can work with me.
Yeah. And to make something clear is if you're gonna get together with somebody, Christine, what I would say is she's gonna spend 2 hours with you, but you gotta do the work outside of the 2 hours too. And a lot of people think that the sessions are the magical cure-all. What you're doing is giving them the tools to get there. You still got to do the work on top of the time with you.
Yes. And the greatest feeling, and I'm sure this is for you as well, Rob, is
Yeah.
when you work with somebody and you have that time with them, and then you let them, you let them do the thing that they're supposed to, and then they just create like amazing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a client who is really good at AI, artificial intelligence, and her background is actually in real estate, but she's actually now going into AI creating tools for entrepreneurs and business owners, and she is a genius. And we have our 2 hours together and we knock stuff out. We got her branding down. It's so good. It looks so slick, so awesome. And then she'll send me an email, a couple days later before our next session, and she'll go, "Oh, I created this. What do you think about that?" And I'm like, "Wow." Like
Yeah.
that's the best feeling as
Yeah.
someone who's a coach and mentor, to have
Yeah.
that person take what you were talking about, the tools or the inspiration, and then to go and to deliver like that, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, so is and so rewarding, and that's why you do it. I mean, the money's nice, but I'll tell you, that feeling is the best feeling in the world when somebody comes back to you and says, "Look what I did." Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If somebody wants to work with you, book that strategy call, how is the best way to get in touch with you, where to find you, and that kind of stuff?
Yes, they can actually find out about everything that I've been talking about at expertauthoritycoach.com. That's expertauthoritycoach.com. And there's a link there that you can book that discovery call with me. If you forget that for some reason, or you want directly to just book that time with me, you can go to chatwithchristineb.com. And that is my immediate booking link. So if you wanted to book that 30-minute discovery call, it's just chatwithchristineb.com. But all of that information is on my website.
Christine, thanks so much for the conversation. Really enjoyed this topic like so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk to your audience. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. This podcast has been brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing concierge to help the business owner put all his pieces together, whether it's email marketing, WordPress security, WordPress design and development, PPC, and more. Text Stunning Digital Marketing for all your digital marketing needs today. A very special thank you to Christine for joining this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.